Theo, you'll be here.
Wait, are the small ones on here?
Come close. Good morning, everyone. I'm Henry Sigarishi, Director of Music. Nice to see you all. So most of you, I think, know the song, Come, Come, Whoever You Are. And these young people are going to sing it for us as the service begins. And then I will invite you to join them in singing it again. At that point, we're going to make you all, the chosen few here, to do the component part. And those pitches, Jasmine, are... We've broken our vows 1,000 times. We've broken our vows 1,000 times. We've broken our vows. Exactly. And so you'll just sing that while they're singing the easy part. And we'll do it 2 or 3 times through. So thank you very much. Let's have a great worship service.
Buenos días y bienvenidos. Good morning and welcome. I am the Reverend Katie Romano Griffin, your assistant minister, and I welcome you to Cedar Lane Unitarian Universalist Church. We are a place where love works, where we gather together to explore the eternal, to nurture community, and build a more just world. Together we dare to embody the beloved community where all are welcome.
Please know that whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are from, whatever your beliefs, life circumstance, gender identity, or immigration status, you are welcome here.
A special welcome to those of us who are joining us online, whether in the moment or catching up with us later. We are streamed across the globe. We are at hospital bedsides. We are in hospice rooms. We are in hotel rooms with members who are traveling for work. Please, if you feel inclined, if you can give a wave to the camera. We're glad to have everyone with us today. If you're new to Cedar Lane, we have a small gift for you. Please raise your hand if you're comfortable doing so, and keep it raised for a moment or 10 so our ushers can find you. And Cedar Laners, let's give a warm welcome to our visitors today.
All are invited to stay after the service to enjoy coffee and conversation. If visitors choose to use a yellow mug, our members and friends will be sure to greet you. Because here at Cedar Lane, yellow means
hello.
There we go.
Nicely done. I'd like to draw your attention to the announcements page, which is in your order of celebration. This is a vital and engaged religious community, and there are lots of ways to get involved, a few of which are on that sheet, and there's still more on the website. I especially want to draw your attention to the new member retreat, which is happening It's happening on Saturday, the 29th from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. in the Chalice House. So if you have not yet signed the membership book, you're not a member. So please, I invite you to come to the retreat or contact me. We're also doing a Share the Plate today with an amazing organization in Montgomery County, and here to talk about it is one of the Surge that's showing up for racial justice, MoCo leaders, Laurel Ho, who's also a member of Cedar Lane for 5 years. Thank you, Laurel.
Thank you so much, Reverend Katie. I'm so grateful for Cedar Lane for its enormous support of our organization. My name is Laurel Ho. I am one of the founding members and a core organizer with the Montgomery County chapter of Showing Up for Racial Justice. The purpose of our organization is to undermine white support for white supremacy. So why should you give us money? Here's why. What we believe in, one of the things is reparations, and we believe in that institutionally as well as interpersonally. So what we do with money that is given to us is direct support of people of color activists. So that direct support means that we give money to people who are fighting to end oppression while living under those oppressive systems. So for example, we are able to help a queer black activist get his phone turned back on when he can't afford to pay his phone bill. For an indigenous activist who lost her job due to trauma and discrimination, we are able to give her money for food because she can only afford 1 meal per day. And these are people who are actively organizing in their community. So they are out facilitating meetings, leading trainings, running marches, and we believe that they should not have to do this work uncompensated, since the work they are doing is because of the forced uncompensated labor that their ancestors had to do, or because they were forced off of this land that they owned and are now dealing with systemic oppression. So please give as generously as you can so that we can give to do our direct support of these activists of color who are working locally to make change. Thank you.
Thank you, Laurel.
In this caring community, the pastoral visitors are an extension of the ministry team. Helen Pakacek is today's on-call pastoral visitor. They will be available after the service at the Joys and Sorrows Candles table. Please reach out to them if you would like support after the service.
If you are not yet registered for religious education, if you've not yet registered your child for religious education, you may do so downstairs after the service. I know I made my dash, stole flying behind me down there earlier this morning, and know that the tables will be downstairs after this service. And now let us experience the joyous, loving, multi-generational community that is Cedar Lane. Please rise in body or spirit and greet your neighbors.
Wherever you are again.
Come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshipper, lover of leaving, caravan of despair, come yet again, come.
We are here after a week of wet skies, wet sidewalks, of hurricanes, natural and political. We are here to worship, to release our burdens honestly.
As we learn to fall like moving water over the hard, unmoving places in our lives.
Mindful that we share a common world, but approach that world in different ways.
We begin our celebration together by kindling our promise of mutual honesty, attentiveness, and compassion.
Here we bring hearts of all kinds, heavy hearts, rusty hearts, hearts broken open in revelation, hearts full of love and joy to share.
Here we share a covenant, a direction for our shared journey, and a commitment to encourage and challenge one another to spiritual growth.
Let us move forward with love. Come, let us worship together. As Debbie Trent, member of our Right Relations Task Force, and Ann Meyer, kindle the chalice, symbol of our gathered community, I invite us, as we begin a new congregational year together, to share in unison our congregational covenant of right relations. The words are printed as an insert in your order of celebration. Please rise in body and or in spirit. We of Cedar Lane Unitarian Universalist Church strive to build and maintain a welcoming, safe, and inclusive community for all who worship and work here, one where trust, acceptance, and caring thrive. As a diverse community bonded by love and gratitude, we encourage all who enter here to join us as together we promise to bring best selves to every encounter, to honor, strengthen, and preserve the ties that unite us, assume the good intentions of others, including those whose attitudes, aims, worldviews, or spiritual paths might diverge from our own. Listen to one another mindfully, with empathy and kindness, seeking both to understand and be understood. Communicate with one another directly, with respect, honesty, and compassion. Practice generosity of spirit and substance. Together we advance our mission. Help one another as we are able, and openly ask for help when we need it. Forgive ourselves and others when we fall short, and begin again in love. To live this covenant as a congregation, I promise to embody these aspirations to the best of my ability in all my interactions with and for this, our beloved community. Please be seated.
Thank you. You guys. Oh, no. You're good. Just. Before we begin our RE program dedication, I have a short story to tell you. The title of the story is Little Jimmy and the Third Smooth Stone. It was little Jimmy's favorite time of the day, recess. Every day they had a whole half an hour for recess, and he looked forward to it every day. Even though he liked learning, sure, he always needed a break, and recess gave him just the time he needed to recharge for the day. But today, when he got outside for recess, he found his friends playing a game he couldn't understand. There was a lot of running around, which looked fun, But every so often, someone would yell cat. Then everyone would turn around 3 times and start to run in a different direction. So he was about to join in on the running when he heard a girl yell, "Now you're the bird." The bird? When he saw his friend Susie run by flapping her arms, he guessed that meant Susie was the bird, but what did that mean? So as he stood there trying to figure it out, he looked around and he saw Christina sitting down on the bench. Christina couldn't run like the rest of the class. She had hurt her leg last week, and the doctor told her she wasn't allowed to run for a while. She looked pretty sad. She noticed him looking, and he decided to give her a big smile and a friendly wave. He looked over at the swing set and saw a couple of his other friends, Jose and Leslie, sitting on the swings looking just as confused as he was. He went over and asked Jose, "Do you know what they're playing?" Jose shook his head. Leslie replied, "I have no idea. It looks fun, but they started playing it before I knew what was going on. I don't know the rules." Well, Jimmy frowned. "I don't know either," he said. Jimmy looked around, and the more he looked, the more he saw that not everyone was playing. Well, something didn't feel right to Jimmy. Most of his friends in his class were playing the game, but not everyone could. And some people didn't even know how. They weren't one big class of friends playing together. He realized something important right then. How they are together matters. Sure, a lot of his friends were having fun, but they were causing others to feel bad or left out or confused. It matters how they are all playing together, being together. Well, Jimmy stood up from the slide and said softly, "How we are together matters." He was pretty proud of what he realized, only to find that no one had heard him. So Jimmy took a deep breath and shouted as loud as he could, "Stop! How we are together matters." So this, caused the game to stop. "What do you mean?" asked Susie. "You're all playing a game, but not including everyone. I never heard what the rules of the game were, and other people can't run. This doesn't seem very fair. We should be together." Well, after a moment, Susie said, "You're right, Jimmy. We should find something that everyone can play together." So they spent the next 10 minutes as one big class coming up with a game. It took longer than Jimmy thought it would, but soon everyone had agreed on what the rules of the new game would be. And you know what? They all had a great time playing their new game. Because this time everyone was included. Because this time everyone agreed to the rules. And because this time they were really together. So how we are together matters. So today as a congregation, we're talking about covenants. Earlier, you heard our congregational covenant of right relations. But what is a covenant? A covenant is a list of promises that we make to each other so we can all be in one community together. So today, each of our religious education classes are coming up with their own covenant for the year. And we're starting off our year with a covenant right here and right now. So would our students please rise in body or in spirit? There's going to be a lot of standing up and down for this next part. So all of our students, please rise in body or in spirit. I see more of you, but that's okay. Students, do you promise to bring your best selves to your religious education classroom? Do you promise to remember to create safe places for each other and to remember that how we are together matters? Do you promise to look out for each other and to make friends with your fellow classmates? Do you promise to have fun, to support each other, to be curious, and to ask your teachers and parents really hard questions about religion and faith? If you do, please respond with, "We promise." Thank you. You may be seated. So will our teachers in the room please rise? Our teachers and advisors. And let's give them a round of applause, everyone. Teachers, do you promise to show up? To show up for our to show up for our children and youth on a regular basis. To show up intentionally and be your authentic, joyful selves in the classroom. To show up and build a true community with your students. to show up and build a true community with your fellow teachers? Do you promise to help our children and youth along their spiritual paths? And do you promise to help set parents up to be the primary religious educators in their homes? If you do, please respond with, "We promise." Thank you. You all can sit down. And would all of our parents in the room please rise? Yeah, let's give our parents a round of applause. Parents, do you promise to be the primary religious educators of your family? Do you promise to support your child's faith development even when they ask the really tough questions from time to time? Do you promise to do your best to bring your children to the RE program for this weekly boost to their spiritual development? Do you promise not to neglect your own spiritual needs while helping your family build its collective faith? If you do, please respond with, "We promise." Thank you. Okay. And now would our staff please rise, wherever they are in the congregation? Thank you. Staff, do you promise to support our religious education program and our families? Do you promise to remember that every single one of us works for all ages of the church? Do you promise to remember to bring fun, joy, and creativity to the work that we do? And do you promise to keep families at the heart of our work and to consider the needs of families in every action we take in every program we create? If you do, please respond with, "We promise." We promise. And now would the whole congregation please rise in body, heart, and spirit. Congregation, do you promise to support your Lifespan religious education program through your financial contributions to our annual pledge drive and through volunteering for Lifespan religious education events? Do you promise to embrace your own religious education and model for our children and youth the importance of lifelong learning? Do you promise to shower our teachers with appreciation, to shower our parents with support, to shower our children and youth with love? If you do, please respond with, "We promise." And now let our 2018-2019 religious education program year commence. Please join us in singing our children and teachers off to their classes. Dr. Henry will lead us in song with the lyrics printed in your order of celebration.
The peace of the Spirit will be with you now. As you go forth from this space, hold it in your heart. Love, knowledge, and hope to seek, your teachers will guide. Use the knowledge that they share to make a better world.
Come, wanderer. Come, worshiper. Come, folks in the back row who'd like to come forward and fill in the seats left by our religious education children and youth. Come with your joys. Come with your broken heart, your wholeness, and your loneliness. We gather as a single community in sacred space to meet the wonders and challenges that life brings us all. Let us enter this time together to gather strength and inspiration as we bear witness to the joys and sorrows of our community and the community at large. When I hold up my arms, I invite you to say, "We hold you in our hearts." If you're living through the small and extraordinary challenges of life, we hold you in our hearts. If parenting is your spiritual practice, we hold you in our hearts. If you live with or care for someone with grief or chronic pain or illness, we hold you in our hearts. If you are struggling with illnesses seen and unseen, with mental illness or addictions, we hold you in our hearts. If you have suffered abuse or injustice, we hold you in our hearts. We hold in our hearts the American University family and all of the friends and family members of Black activist Isaiah Young, who died of a long-term illness at the tender age of 21. We hold you in our hearts. We hold in our hearts all who have been affected by Florence. We hold you in our hearts. We hold in our hearts all of our beloved community in the Philippines and Japan as they struggle through Typhoon Mangkhut, the largest storm, the strongest one of this century. We hold you in our hearts. Nancy Jansen is home and recovering from surgery. Cards are welcome. Nancy, we hold you in our hearts. Wanda Van Gore continues to recover at Suburban. Cards are also welcome. Wanda, we hold you in our hearts. And we have some joys to celebrate today, too. We began our worship together as a single community with all ages. Wonderful voices, some speaking for the first time with sounds still forming, bodies shifting in seats, grooving to tunes not all of us can hear, reminding us that life is happening even in the midst of storms. And for this, let us be grateful. As we begin to enter a period of silence together, I invite those of us who have recently lost a loved one or who are acknowledging the anniversary of a loss to rise in body or spirit as we take into the silence the joys, sorrows, and mourning of our community. May all prayers be answered. May all hearts be restored. May it be so. We vowed not so long ago to live lives that added, not subtracted.
We promised not so long ago to live lives that matched our words, lives not hard and brittle with anger, but soft with letting go.
We made an oath not so long ago to live lives that reached for the stars and did not consist of strings of little disappointments or fragments of the shattered dreams we once used as mirrors to see how good we looked.
The days have flown quickly, and they will flow quickly in the year to come.
Circumstances, stress, brokenness come to all. It is the human condition.
And thus I say before the witness of the blue sky bending a bow,
and before the nodding blue chicory flowers of early autumn still growing here below,
and before the clear eyes of children not yet born, children who will inherit the world from us,
that all the vows we will make not long from now,
all the promises we will make,
all the unspoken oaths we will declare,
are hereby canceled, annulled, voided, and made unbinding.
We are free, not to promise to be good, but simply to get on with loving each other.
We are free, not to vow great transformations, but to engage life with tenderness and understanding and outpourings of kindness.
We are free not to swear oaths of everlasting loyalty and righteousness, but to continue to be generous to each other, to ourselves, and to the common good.
At the start of the new year, we begin again in love. Thank you, members of the choir, Jasmine and Henry, for that beautiful piece of music. Thank you. Good morning. It is so good to see you all here this morning, returning again as we begin a new congregational year together, as well as new faces. And we do mean it when we say if parenting is your spiritual practice, we hold you in our hearts. We're getting to the end of the high holy days of Judaism that began with Rosh Hashanah, the legendary birth of the universe that began last Sunday at sundown, followed by 10 days of repentance or the days of awe, culminating on Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, which is this Wednesday. Now, the time in between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur is to be spent in fasting and reflection, taking stock of our lives, acknowledging what we have accomplished and where we have fallen short, and seeking to turn our lives around. Now, the concept is to intentionally re-engage with life, letting go of things that hold us back or hold us down, and starting afresh. A colleague of mine, Reverend Ilya Kemmler, shares the story of a rabbi who wanted to teach his congregation about the meaning of Yom Kippur in a way that they wouldn't forget. So on Rosh Hashanah, the rabbi handed out clear plastic bags and potatoes to everyone in the congregation. And during the service, the rabbi asked members to sit there and think about every person they had not forgiven. He asked them to think about every incident, every insult or hurt or grudge that they had not let go, that they still thought about or worried about and felt wronged by, and to take a potato for each one of those things and put it into their plastic bag. And not just the grudges they were holding against other people, but the grudges they were holding against themselves, all those ancient shames and regrets, failures and mistakes and sorrows they had never truly forgiven themselves for. The rabbi asked them to put a potato in the bag for each one of those as well. And then for all the ways in which people had hurt others and had not sought forgiveness for, he asked them to put a potato in the bag for those as well. And he asked them to be honest and also to be gentle and kind to themselves and to each other about the number of potatoes that went into their bags. No judging, no commenting, no shocked expressions or raised eyebrows, he said. Now, you can imagine that some people had a pretty full bag of potatoes. Some people even had a second or third bag. Or as a member observed to me between services, some even had a U-Haul worth of potatoes. Well, the rabbi asked them to carry their bags of potatoes around with them during the next 10 days leading up to Yom Kippur. He asked them to carry the bags everywhere they went, to work, on errands, to the grocery store or the barber shop or doctor's appointments. He asked them to lay the bags down with them in bed at night, or to take them into the bathroom, into the shower, to put them on passenger seats in their cars, to eat with them on their laps at the dinner table or at restaurants. And then he asked them to bring them back to synagogue on Yom Kippur. I want you to really feel the weight of what you're carrying, he told his congregation. Now, a lot of the members of the congregation did it. And you can imagine what those 10 days were like. You can imagine how heavy those potatoes must have gotten, how awkward and uncomfortable and smelly the potatoes were, especially in bed and the dinner table. But 10 days later, the congregation returned, somewhat worse for the wear, with their ripped, dirty bags of slimy, rotting potatoes. I'm guessing you're ready to put your potatoes down, the rabbi told the congregation, passing around a huge compost pail. See, this was a green sanctuary, so they believed in composting. Let the potatoes go, he told them. Toss them away. Every hurt, every slight, every bitterness, put it all down, he said. And so, amidst much triumphant yelling and hooting and hollering, the bags of potatoes were hurled into the compost bin. End of story. So the point and promise and premise of Yom Kippur is that every year we get a new chance to throw away our rotten potatoes. Every year we get a new chance to take stock of our lives, to set down the burdens we have been carrying, burdens that we are so used to carrying that we no longer recognize that we are carrying them. Every year we get a new chance to set down, to let go of the weight of all the hurts and grudges and the guilt and the shame that we have accumulated and are lugging around with us. Every year, we get a new chance to allow ourselves to imagine a different way, to dream a better dream, and follow it through. What a beautiful way of going about and through life. Which is why, even though I'm not Jewish, as a practicing Hindu, I love this ritual, these 10 days, where I get a chance to take stock of my life and how I have fallen short in so many ways towards my family, my loved ones, my congregation, and with the world. This process in the Jewish tradition is called teshuvah. Teshuvah is about taking responsibility, responsibility, developing the ability to move from a place of deep awareness and knowing of what is right, not from our excuses or defenses. It is more than admitting one's mistakes or wrongs or failings. It is about not repeating the same thing again, combined with doing what needs to be done, restitution, to set things right again. Teshuvah is about seeking and granting forgiveness, which Judaism says is the way we draw closer to the meaning of being human, being in right relationship, in a covenanted relationship with ourselves, with each other, and with God. So what is forgiveness in this context? Well, I'll tell you what forgiveness is not in this context. Forgiveness is not forgetting. Forgiveness is not condoning, excusing, or minimizing the pain or hurt that we experience. Forgiveness is not weak refusal to confront the perpetrator or the deed. Forgiveness is not denying or ignoring what we have done or what others have done to us. Forgiveness does not mean that we give in or justify what someone has done. And forgiveness most certainly is not ignoring or excusing institutional racism, for example, or sexism, or homophobia, or xenophobia, all the ways in which people are dehumanized and made the other. That is not forgiveness. So what is forgiveness then? The Stanford Forgiveness Project, a research group based in Stanford University in California, offers a really good definition that I have found very helpful. Here's what they say. Forgiveness is the feeling of peace that emerges as you take your hurt less personally. Take responsibility to how you feel and become a hero instead of a victim in the story that you tell. Forgiveness is the experience of peacefulness in the present moment. Forgiveness does not change the past, but it changes the present. Forgiveness means that even though you're wounded, you choose to hurt and suffer less. Forgiveness means you become, excuse me, thank you. That you choose to become part of the solution. Forgiveness is the understanding that hurt is a normal part of life. Forgiveness is for you and no one else. So, in the act of forgiving, we allow ourselves to be focused not so much on the past, but on the present, so we can find a way to move forward into our future. We let go of the hold something has on us that is keeping us stuck and find the freedom to see ourselves in a new place. So it is a kind of relinquishment, a release of whatever is holding us down or holding us back. It is something that works in its own time and cannot be rushed. And it is personal. And in the act of forgiveness, we give up our right to even the score. We let go of our resentment, however righteous, and offer the persons who hurt us our friendlier attitudes to which they are not entitled. There's the rub. Now, that's a very difficult thing to do, for me at least. You see, I love to get a lot of satisfaction. In fact, I get great pleasure in holding on to my anger and my hurt. It energizes me. It makes me feel self-righteous and superior. It just feeds and fuels my ego. And it lets me wallow in self-pity and feel victimized. And why on earth would I want to give up all of that? I mean, really. Let me give you an example from my own life. Some of you know that my parents separated when I was very young, 2 years old. My father, who's a Muslim, married another woman without my mother's knowledge, and so was never present in my life throughout. While I didn't really miss him, thanks to my grandfather who stepped into that role and more than made up for it, there were times when I felt his absence, and over the years built up resentment and anger, not just towards him, but towards Islam. However misplaced it was, that's how I felt. And after many years, after my wife and I got married and had children, and the children had grown up to be, in middle school and elementary school, we sought out my father. Kind of actually had to go on a search to find him. He had by then retired and was leading a quiet life. After a few days of searching, we found him, and we sat down with him when I said, whatever has happened, why can't we at least now build a relationship? Not because I want a dad in my life at this stage of my life, but because my children would love to have a grandfather in their lives. Well, he heard me out, and then he said, no. I don't really want to be a part of your lives, let alone your children's lives. It was pretty brutal. And I found myself getting even angrier. And then my older son, who was 10, 11 at that time, looked across towards his grandfather and he said, "Thank you, Grandpa. We appreciate your taking time to meet with us. And if you do not want to have a relationship with us, yes, I'm feeling sad, but it's okay." See, sometimes it takes a child to teach us how to learn to forgive. And that day, I felt a release in which not only did I release my father from my life, but also figured out a way to forgive him and let go. Now, that's the only instance that I can recall where I have practiced that. That's why I'm lifting it up. In case you're thinking, somehow I have become this saint who knows how to do that. Nope, that was the only instance. The rest I'm still holding on for dear life. Now, the writer Anne Lamott uses the image of a clenched fist to describe why it is so hard for us to make our way to forgiveness. Because whatever it is we are holding gets all balled up and we hold it tightly as if our life depends on it, not wanting to let it go. But that process, she says, may start with the small step of just letting our fingers open just a bit, relaxing just a bit, feeling a little bit of the tension go, and then a little more, and then a little more. And she said that might be the first step in our way towards healing and wholeness. Now, of course, in these days, practicing forgiveness is a countercultural, heretical act, it seems. Because we live in times that are not very forgiving. We live in times when fear, hatred, vengeance, and revenge are the examples most often before us. We live in times when bullies seem to be in charge. We live in times when it is so easy to make someone else, the other, the scapegoat, and not see their humanity, in fact, objectify them into an it that needs to be gotten rid of. We live in times where people don't admit their mistakes or say they are sorry. So it is really hard somehow in this kind of culture for us to be intentionally practicing forgiveness. And in truth, to be perfectly frank with you, I don't exactly know how we forgive, how it happens. I don't know how exactly we lay down those bags of rotten potatoes, how we break out of those painful places. I just know that it happens, that I have seen it happen time and time again. Maybe we forgive because we realize that we are stuck in that rut for so long that we need to get out. Or maybe we are tired of carrying those bags of rotten potatoes around, that we set it down. Glory, glory, hallelujah, since I laid my burden down. And maybe somehow we are able to see past those burdens, to see something shimmering in the distance that gives us what we need to move forward. Grace, whatever you may wish to call it. But I do know this. I know it takes courage to live openly in the world. It takes courage for ourselves to live beyond our hurts that others may bring us, or to take responsibility for the ways that we let others down, for the ways that we let ourselves down. It takes courage to know our truths and to live them. But forgiveness is critical to our own process of becoming whole. To me, that is one of the essential practices of a spiritual life. And forgiveness is not cheap, and it doesn't always come easy, either in giving it to others, receiving it, or giving it to ourselves. But in accepting who we are with all of our flaws and foibles and all of the possibility within us, we claim the possibility of being whole again. An occasion such as the High Holy Days, the process of teshuvah, of repentance and atonement at one meant, remind us that we have it in us at some point to let go, to develop more heart space, to reconnect. They remind us that we can work to mend what is broken, that we can honor the holy, the divine in one another despite each other's faults and shortcomings, and begin again in love. And that we don't have to define ourselves or let ourselves be defined by our shortcomings and faults. So, dear friends, I encourage you in this season to search your heart for the times you may have missed the mark, harmed another, or have been harmed, and try to seek a path toward forgiveness. Because you see, the odds on love are really good. So why not take that risk? Take that risk. It is worth it. So may it be. Blessed be.
I often remind my husband that encoded in a sliver of my DNA is something that's been passed down by the people who literally invented the vendetta. It's true. And part of how I continue a pattern of journeying toward greater wholeness is through generosity. Through opening my heart by giving and choosing to place my dollars in places that give life, by supporting this community and all who are in it, and by supporting this community as it gives to other organizations like Surge MoCo. And I invite you into this practice of growing into greater wholeness through generosity today, as today's offering is gratefully received. Thank you.
for the gifts which we are and the gifts which we bring and share to make this a beloved community. May we be truly grateful. May we be committed to using these gifts to make a difference in the world and to keep sharing as long as we ever can. Please rise in body or in spirit to sing hymn number 217. We sing Hallelujah in your gray hymnal.
Sing hallelujah. All praise be to you through the high arch of the heavens, and praise be the sun and moon, stars, by trumpet, harp, and lute, with cymbals, strings, and flute, with dancing, singing, and music we praise you. Sing hallelujah. Sing hallelujah, sing hallelujah. Our Father and Mother and Sovereign of all seas, we wish to be quit of all war, by trumpet, harp, and lute, with cymbals and strings and flute, with dancing, singing, music we praise you. Sing hallelujah. Sing hallelujah. Sing hallelujah. Our Father and Mother and Sovereign of all seas, inscribe us of ages of light, by trumpet, harp, and lute, with cymbals, strings, and flute, with dancing, singing, music we praise you. Please remain as you are to join me in this responsive litany of atonement, which is adapted from the Reverend Rob Eller Isaacs' Litany of Atonement. And when I turn to you, I invite you to say together, we forgive ourselves and each other, we begin again in love. Let's try it one time. We forgive ourselves and each other, we begin again in love. If you feel moved, please feel free to hold the hand or bump elbows with your neighbor. For the times when we felt entitled or felt that the world owed us, so we could try and keep up like others and not ourselves, we forgive ourselves and we begin again in love. For the times when a sense of guilt kept us righteous or frozen, or a cultivated shame shattered us from hard reality, we forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. For each time we have refused a genuinely possible reconciliation so we can nurse our hurt, we forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. For the times when our discomfort at being forgiven has kept us apart, we forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. For trying to earn the love of others by working to be perfect and always in control instead of risking the vulnerability of truthfulness, we forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. For the times when we speak intemperately or listen to others only in order to contradict or correct, we forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. For those and for so many attitudes, actions, and omissions, both obvious and not so obvious, which have fostered the illusion that we are truly separate from each other and completely self-derived, we forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. We begin again in love. So may it be. Please be seated for the postlude.